think the primary misconception was that Ward 7, Ward 8, east of the river was a land of hopelessness. We have the highest number of public housing residents and units anywhere in the city. You still found more than a few people who were willing to go against the odds to try to make a difference, not only in the lives of their own children, but also in the lives of other families.
In the District of Columbia, there were numerous problems with the child welfare system and almost no investment in working with at-risk children and families before they get to the point that they had to be separated.
When you're talking about child welfare in particular, you're talking about a system, which means usually that means downtown, that means the government, and people are very, very worried about that.
At the time we began working with the Child Welfare Initiative, there was a lot of things going on in the city. The major thing that was happening was that the agency, Child Welfare Agency, was in receivership. They had a new receiver on board, Jerome Miller, and when he came into office, he was real community focused and feeling like the agency should decentralize, that workers should be out in the community, and there should be a stronger partnership between the agency and the communities.
The Marshall Heights Community Development Organization has worked formally in the community for over 22 years. So many of the families in the child and family welfare system, so many of the families came from our ward.
So the idea would be you would have a facility located in the neighborhood where social workers could become familiar with this particular area and have a better understanding of what's going on there. And some more prevention could be worked into the mix.
And the belief was that because we were close to the families and provided services ourselves, that we would be the entity to pull together some old faces and some new faces.
We had confidence in their capacity to just even convene a community conversation around this. And then from that conversation, be able to take what action came from the community.
To launch this process in Ward 7, a lot of people were brought to the table, not just the organizations, the social service providers and public agencies, but a lot of residents were brought to the table.
The community's concerns were specifics about what were you asking for on part of the community.
You know, what kind of organization we were going to be, who was going to control the organization, what kind of services were we going to get involved in, how were those services going to be delivered, what do we mean by the concept of resident-driven, you know, how is the money going to be spent. It took a lot of effort building trust, and the best way that people build trust is how they experience one another.
Lord set up some meetings with the social workers. When he realized that there was resistance on the part of social workers, because they're saying, we have worked the system forever. Unconsciously, they're saying, how dare you think that you non-trained people on the neighborhood community level can take over such a serious piece of work?
If they have a concern about a particular family, they do call us.
I think that anyone that's in the helping profession, honestly, you know, has very good intentions. I think that the need is so great that everyone is overwhelmed. And whenever you're trying to do something new to an old system, there's going to be some resistance.
If you do not look at what you have, what you've done, and where you are, then you keep going around in a circle.
The social workers had to really appreciate the knowledge that the community brought to the table, and the community had to really understand that the professionalism was needed. It took about 3 years, 4 years actually, before they really could sit down and really have a meaningful understanding.
We've all been trying to create change together, and it isn't easy, and you always have setbacks, but everybody stayed together and stayed focused on our goals for children, and that's really important.
East River Family Strengthening Collaborative is an independent, nonprofit body made up of residents, many of them from public housing, made up of social service professionals, made up of neighborhood-based organizations such as Marshall Heights and others. We helped give birth to the collaborative, and we continue to partner with them.
Very early on in RCI, the idea was to really have a community-driven collaborative where the recipients or those families that were participating in it would also be on the board and set policy, decision-making, planning, and the whole bit, run the organization.
The community had widespread input in terms of selecting the leadership of the collaborative, approving the budget, and bringing on staff.
The collaborative, East River, belongs to the community. So my role as executive director is to engage the entire community.
When you talk about building trust, when you talk about establishing rapport, you've got to make the client feel, or the family feel as if they're the most important thing in the world.
We provided Christmas gifts. We had an open house. We tried to do a number of things just to let people know that we meant business.
You don't need to have a playbook as to how to establish trust. They're people. But if you don't have that from the beginning, you will not move the process along at all. The family will fight you tooth and nail.
I think that residents are beginning to see CFSA as a partner and not so much as, I'm just here to take your child away from you. And the offering of services and having the collaboratives involved has helped to improve that relationship.
When a child goes home after some period of time away, there's some adjustment for the parent and the child for that family to be able to thrive. And again, the community is in a really good position to provide help and support.
We have parenting classes through the National Center for Children and Families.
The proverb for last week was, the ruin of a nation begins in the homes of its people. Now, there's no right or wrong answer for interpreting this, but to you, what is that proverb saying?
Often, families and children have been apart for more than a year. What you have is children feeling that their parents didn't want them, parents often feeling guilt or guilty that they were not parenting their children. So the training usually helps the parents and children readapt to each other, readjust to each other, to help them learn new roles.
How do you model and teach love and understanding to a child?
How you present yourself to your child, that's how they're going to learn.
The parenting educator is a resident from the community and is a parent in the community and is a model, is a role model, and is passionate about her mission.
And I like how you all were able to tie in as a parent. What we do definitely has an effect on our children. Because
what we've seen is that families and children don't spend enough time with each other. They don't always sit down at the dinner table together.
Are you really ready?
We provided a stipend for Melvin Dill's dance program with families and children to provide dance and family bonding therapy. A whole family could go over to Melvin Dill Center and they could dance together and they could learn to drum together.
What was really special about you dancing is that the mommies came out and danced with you. You didn't know your mommy could do that, did you? When you saw your mommy out there, you said, oh, mommy. That's when you're looking at your mommy. And she did good too, didn't she?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
We're working with the Richard England Boys and Girls Club, East Capitol Center for Change, and Winners Lacrosse in developing a lacrosse team for Ward 7. This is unusual because lacrosse is generally not played in the inner city.
How many people here think they can aspire to be a great athlete? I see a couple of hands.
Everybody's hand should be up on that one, man.
Exactly. Everybody's hand should be up on that.
We have to teach people that this is the way you parent. You know, you go to your children's activities. You become a part of their life. You don't just send your child out to play basketball or to go to school. We had recently a Mother's Day celebration for the mothers on our caseloads, and the women were very happy. They came out, they were escorted in by the staff on our families, given corsages, had dinner, and they enjoyed it. They just felt comfortable. They feel comfortable now dropping into the organization, whereas I think in the past they really didn't feel that comfortable. Our workers work differently from CFSA because our workers have smaller caseloads, and I hate to say that because it's unfair to CFSA, but our workers have the ability to engage families on a more meaningful level.
Like 4 kids were taken by Department of Human Services back in February of 2001 for physical abuse and neglect. We were told that the kids weren't going to be returned home and that we needed to enroll in parenting and anger management class for myself. You know, basically get help so we can be better parents.
And then I will meet you this evening at your home and talk about how you want to do that, step by step. Mr. Sedgwick was, you know, he did have an anger problem. He would go off, and he was very closed about a lot of things. Through therapy, through talking with him, through the services, through community help, he's been able to deal with that a lot better.
Spencer has been our caseworker for 2.5 years, and he has been very helpful coming in the home, giving us support. I have called Spencer on several occasions as far as being stressful, and he has helped me as being a man himself, has really helped me to understand and to work through.
My wife and I were talking about it, and she wanted to really get a 4-bedroom because the girls are getting older. The older girl has been exposed to a lot, so she's doing it.
If you get the voucher, then you straight.
Yes.
They needed housing. They were living in a 1-bedroom, and the kids could not be returned, you know, in that condition.
You have a seat?
It was through Marshall Heights that we were able to get them rental assistance. We moved them into a 2-bedroom unit in the community where they have stayed for the past 2.5 years. If we hadn't provided that service, they wouldn't have been able to even talk about getting their children back anytime soon.
As new parents, we have learned appropriate disciplining other than spanking and actually hitting the kids. We learned timeouts, taking away their favorite toys. And I see a difference in the kids. Seem like they're easier to handle now than when I was yelling and screaming and hitting. If I talk to them in a calm voice, they listen more, and they're not afraid of getting beat because we had explained to the children that we went to school just like they're going to school and learning how to be better parents.
Given the nature of the allegation that the family had with CFSA, the chances for being reunified with their children were very, very low. Because of their progress, they've been able to hopefully be reunified with their kids.
Juanisha will hopefully be returning home on July 8th.
You're talking about less than 6 months. That's a lot. That's a lot. That's overwhelming. A lot of times, agencies, even social services, believes that once a child is reunified, that's when the services should stop. That's when you close a case, that's the goal, everyone is happy. That's when the problems just start. So this case won't be closed with each other for a while because we're going to still need to monitor how stable that home is going to be.
Comes from the drummers to the dancers, and from what? The dancers to the drummers.
When the federal government did a review last summer of the child welfare agency in the district during the last years of the receivership, one of the things that the review said was that both our community partners and our foster parents were an important strength that we have to build on.
I don't think that I would be fair if I didn't say that we haven't seen some families go back and go through the cycle. But at the same time, I think the majority, or a lot of our families, once they get out, they'll stay out. You know, they may still stay involved with us, but they'll stay out of the formal child welfare system, which is good.
A public child welfare agency, no matter how good it is, cannot by itself protect children. It has to have the relationships with both neighbors, churches, community organizations. You have to really perform those child welfare functions within the context of community and neighborhood in order to achieve the outcomes that we want for children and families.